recording?
You have to get permission.
Okay. All right. Understood. All right. So I guess we're recording now.
Yes. Yes.
I see that
Thank
red
you,
light.
John. I was just telling you, I was getting intrigued that we have something, the phenomena of the Tibetan Buddhists living amongst us as if they were aliens living amongst us, and no one's recognizing, no one's saying anything about it. And then after I did research, I found out the scientists know about it, the government knows about it, the politics, everyone does know something about the Tibetan Buddhist, but yet everything is kept quiet. And now everything is coming out. And it's really weird because when I discovered Dzogchen in the, guess 90s, now I'm finding out that's when it just came out. I thought it was already public for, forever. And now when I'm looking back at the dates of all the books, something weird.
I don't quite get what you think is would have been secret about the Tibetans living among us.
What is so? How no? It's not mainstream. Mainstream people do not know the wonders, how different that they're living amongst us. Mainstream society, I think, just thinks that they're gentle people meditating. I don't think the mainstream people have any clue what the government knows, what the scientists know, what all the people that are in the know about the Tibetan Buddhists. I think the mainstream person just thinks they're peaceful people meditating, and that's it. That's the beginning and the ending of it. And that's what I mean by living in secret.
I see. Okay.
But my point is they're living in a parallel world.
I would say in that sense, I would say Tibetan Buddhism, or the Tibetans, which is not exactly the same thing either, but Tibetan Buddhism is even largely unknown to the Tibetan Buddhists, to the Western enthusiasts.
Let me ask you a question. Is it my imagination, or is Tibetan Buddhism the most accessible, let's say the most accessible, and let's just use them as general word, non-dual tradition available today?
No.
It's not? No. What would you say would
be quite the contrary. I think it is a non-dual tradition at heart, but it's practically one of the most inaccessible ones. It's very cryptic, and it's protected by loads and loads of, if you take it seriously, you have to undergo this whole, usually you have to undergo this whole hurdle run over a whole series of sets of vows. So you have to commit yourself to all sorts of vows in order to ever be able to access the truly non-dualistic practices. Well, you get the view without the vows. You can talk about the view, the philosophical view about it, but that's not practicing Tibetan Buddhism. If you just get the view, you can do that as a scholar. You don't have to become a Buddhist for that.
Okay.
But if you want to practically use that view for ritualistic practices that would characterize Tibetan Buddhism, then you have to cross all these vow hurdles and all that. And
yes. Okay, so maybe accessible.
Very restrictive in my view. Basically, impractical unless you have some sort of sponsor who pays for your living. I think it's next to impossible to practice this, because it's something as simple as downloading a new software, and then you have a window popping up and say, I agree to these terms of service or whatever. And then you have a litany of, 10 pages of legal text that you have to agree to. Now, you have to agree that you read all that, you understood that, and you agree. So now you have to, nobody ever reads that stuff. He just hits, I agree. So now what did you do? You lied. You gave an official, even legally binding statement that is untruthful. And you cannot live under the constraints of this technological civilization while preserving your vows not to lie, for example. You have to lie all the time in the system to even pay your bill, to be able to pay your bills. So what do they do? Well, you can purify minor infractions of your vows, such as not lying. Yeah, then you have to probably break this, or at least violate this not lying vow 10, 20 times a day. And then you have to do 10, 20 rituals of purifying that.
Wait a second. Let me ask you a question. You got to
that infraction of your vows, and that's making existence impossible in our today's world.
Let me ask you a question now.
Wait. I'm not finished yet. So on the one hand, they demand that you keep these vows. Otherwise, you have no access to these secret teachings, which are non-dual, whatever. But at the same time, they themselves are not really taking them so seriously because it's impractical. So what does that mean? Is that accessible, or is that schizophrenic? Why not just, I mean, I'm not a particular fan of Rupert Spira with his latest vaccination excursion, but you might as well listen to Rupert Spira. That's more accessible, at least. I don't think he doesn't do a good job at more or less representing non-dual teachings. So you can do that. That's more accessible. So that's a long answer to your question. Is that the most accessible form of non-dualism? No, I don't think so. It's the worst of all in that regard.
Okay, so now I'm gonna rephrase the question now. Do these different schools of Buddhism, do they mean anything in the sense of approaching it differently? Am I being naive in assuming that I'm attracted to, and I'm just now learning these words, but the Nyingma school, is that it? The N-Y-N-G-A, Nyingma? Okay, so there's the Kagyu, I don't know, various schools. I just noticed every single teacher, that every book I've ever read, it's always the Nyingma. How do you say it again?
Nyingma, that just means the old school, Nyingma, the old
school. Okay, everything, Longchenpa, Pamasava, Grab Dorje, every single one.
What was that? What was that you said?
Longchenpa.
Longchenpa.
My favorite. Longchenpa, Padmasava.
That came later, right? Padmasambhava is...
and Grab Dorje?
Garab Dorje is a mythical figure that is supposed to have been much, much older, even than long before the Buddha.
So even he's mythical. I knew the rest of them were mythical. I didn't know
even could be historical, but it's fine.
Wow. Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, even my own birth is mythical. I don't even.
In that sense, yeah. All right.
But when it comes to somebody like who has supposedly lived 20,000 years ago, I don't know.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Here's my question for you, John.
There's no document at all. There's no reason to think he's historical, except that they, in these cultures, usually one thing you have to understand about these cultures, they come from they have a degenerating view of history. So they think everything that is old is good. So if you want to have the truest teaching, you have to a lineage that is older than anyone else, any other. So they actually seem to think, so they have an incentive to claim that the founders of their transmission is older than older. And
so I would be nice.
And Garab Dorje is not Buddhist, by the way. He's a Pern teacher.
Okay, and I think maybe that's it. I think that's something that answers my question then. I think you just maybe answered my question. What I listen to is nothing but like these Longchenpa and Grab Dorje, these guys, and everything they're basing. The reason it resonates with me is there's no religion, no tradition, no chanting, no rules, no precepts, nothing, just the experience. The only thing I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's what you think. That's how they sell their books. Oh, we are beyond religion. This is just your natural state. That's how they sell their books, and they reel you in that way. Then when
you get there, now you're going to have to say the rituals. Now you have to say the rites.
I've spent maybe 20 years ago or something. I went to one of the main monasteries of this Pern tradition around Kathmandu. And what do you see? You see
What tradition?
Pern.
I don't know what that means.
Burn, you probably pronounce it burn, but it's really Pern, as far as I remember.
Is that like Dzogchen?
Yeah, well, Dzogchen is the main transmission of this Pern tradition.
Spell it?
Pern, B-O umlaut N. Bön.
Oh, B-O-N.
Yeah.
Oh, I've always called that bone. Oh,
Yeah, no,
I know bone. Okay, say it again. It sounds like
it's
burn.
an umlaut. Bön. Bön.
Okay, tell me about bone. Okay, now I interrupted you. Continue.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to make the point that you say, well, this is all beyond religion, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what they say to reel you in because they know that the Westerners like that. They want spirituality, but no religion. So we'll tell them, yeah, that's what we are. We are not religious. We are just scientists of the mind.
Yeah.
So here we go. This is your natural state. And then you go visit the Lama who said that in Kathmandu in his monastery. You see piling up the whole ritual thing and the same issues with vows, and you got to submit to all number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
And it's just a matter of time until they reel you into their religion, because anyway, they view Westerners as, well, meanwhile, they figured out that we're not rich. The Taiwanese and the guys from Singapore, they are richer and they are Buddhists anyway. So meanwhile, when they want to go on a trip to collect support for their monasteries, they no longer visit Europe and America so much, because these idiotic Westerners, they actually wanted to meditate. Well, that was not their intention. They just want to wave this meditation thing in front of us so that we then sooner or later notice that we can't do it. So basically their intention is for us to notice that we are not mature enough to really, really meditate. And so we have to go through ages of preparations. But there are these good yogis, but you can support them. You will get a lot of merit from supporting these yogis. They're number 1 to 500, and you can support them with your money. So that's what they want us for, right? They came touring to the West, and of course, if you are a super talented yogi, they accept that. But if you're after 6 months not demonstrating that you can visualize perfectly, then they basically categorize you under, well, another religious follower that might come to spiritual fruition centuries from now, and until then he can make his sort of basic exercise and donate money and participate in building up the centers or whatnot. So your hopes are ill-founded exactly when it comes to the Tibetans. They
romantic. As usual, my whole life has been romanticizing Eastern philosophy. My whole life has been romanticizing it.
Yeah. That's why I want to. And that's not saying that they don't have anything. They have.
No. I agree. That's not what you're saying. That's not what you said. You were clear. You were clear, John.
They have contemplative geniuses among them.
You were clear. But I want to go back to...
But because they have contemplative geniuses among them, they expect you to be a contemplative genius if you want to be considered seriously.
Yeah. But serious people, I don't want to chant. I don't want to learn anything. But serious, I only serious meditate. I don't want to serious chant or recite or learn or anything. None of it. I'm not serious about that. I'm not serious about that.
Yeah, exactly. So what the Tibetans don't have is a workable transition from an ordinary person up to the level of somebody that they could take seriously as spiritually hot stuff. So that,
and you know what? Nature takes care of the bodhisattva. Like, that's why I think the bodhisattva is a natural and unavoidable product of nature. It's just you don't even have to know about it. They didn't invent it. They noticed it. Them inventing the Buddha, what do you call it? The bodhisattva vow is like scientists inventing black holes or dark matter. They recognize I think the bodhisattva vow is something that happens because they're whatever. I don't want to get sidetracked. But anyway, back to Tibetan Buddhism. I think you're right on. I think you're spot on. But I want to get back to the visualization. What do you mean by that? They said they're going to ask you to visualize something and judge you based on your visualize. I don't know what that means.
Don't ask me about visualization, because that's precisely what stopped me from getting deeper and deeper and deeper into Tibetan Buddhism.
I don't even know what it means, though. Just define it. I don't know what that means.
Well, basically it means, in German, we have a nice word for that. It's called vergegenwärtigen. So you generate, and that's one point. I've never found a really good explanation for that. They demand that you practice this, but they can't explain it. To find a good explanation for that, I was reading a book by a German yogi decades ago. He was not Buddhist. He was, I think, more yoga oriented. He wrote a book called Das Öffnen des dritten Auges, the opening of the third eye. And that's the only place where I really found a good explanation of how visualization works and how they intend that. So basically, it's generating a feeling, vergegenwärtigen, of the presence of something. So it's not even intended to be immediately visual. It could, the visual aspect could be a result, but
I get it.
The exercise itself is not yet visual.
I get it.
Not necessarily. It's like you cultivate the feeling. It's like you have that's the opening of the third eye. That he's assuming that there is a faculty in your mind that makes actual contact with an object by generating the feeling for its presence. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're a Catholic and you pray to Mother Mary or something, and you have a sense what she supposedly looks like, or you have a feeling of her presence and you pray to her. That would be visualization if you generate this feeling of her presence. And then sooner or later, if you generate this openness, then if you close your eyes just about above the area of the eyebrows, there is what in yoga is called ka, the sky, so the mental sky. Then out of that, the mind carves by the feeling of its presence, carves an image, and they get closer and closer to what you expect to see. And there's a sense of love for that, what you want to see. And then sooner or later it manifests. So you actually then have a mental, the ideal result would be that you have a very clear experience of the object.
So and the thing that you would objectify, you would objectify would not be a real object. It would always be a mythical object. It would never be, you wouldn't do this to a pencil, try to materialize a pencil in your mind. It would always be a deity.
You can practice this with a pencil in order to develop psychic powers to maybe, I don't know, have a connection with your car keys because you lost them, and maybe you can find them this way. But that's not how they teach it in Tibetan Buddhism. Usually the purpose of doing this is to make contact with higher realized, with forms that represent higher realization.
See, what if I just think it's all just mind? Just the whole thing's just awareness. That's what they would
say. That's what they would say. So this is part of your mental activity, but because the form has a tradition of yogis practicing it, then it becomes the conduit for higher spiritual influence.
So I'd have to think of like just a Buddhist that I like Logchenpa, whatever that means, or Buddha nature, a word. You're saying I'd have to think of a word that does mean something to me, right? Like Buddha nature means something to me, or space. Like I'd have to think of a word that actually means something to me, right? And then try to materialize that word in space. Is that it? The criteria would have to be, you have to care about that word, right?
Yeah, you have to care about that, and it's usually not used for abstract thoughts. Visualization is used for very concrete traditional forms that are depictable in like.
See, that's my thing, John. I'm only interested in the abstract. I'm not interested in any kind.
Yeah, I'm not telling you to visualize. I'm just saying that the tantric method involves the capacity to practice meditation based on visualization. Mm-hmm. Because that will then later, because basically you have an image of your own body, and later that the deity will be your own body. So you overlay your usual material concept of your own body with this sort of emptiness clarity idea of body as an expression of full Buddhahood. And then you overlay that with your own body, and that changes the mind in its attitude towards yourself and your own form, which will then bring out the enlightened qualities. And that's why this is a basis with some other practices that are based on that, then working with the inner nadis and with the energies and with the sexuality. And they're not saying this so openly, but that's what it basically comes down to, is then all the energies, including your sexuality, which is particularly strong, which is why it's, I think it is very much an emphasis in the whole thing, simply because people are most attached to that. But all the psychological energies are being used and moved in accordance with that pure vision, then an idea of a realm of experience which is free from all blemishes and defilements. And that then, because you practice meditation on that ground, it is considered to be a particularly fast way to full enlightenment.
I was going to say, yes. Yep. Everything.
That can only be the case, in my opinion, if you can actually bring your mind to visualize in a brilliantly and very impressive, so that it becomes convincing to your own mind that you actually experience the world like this. A tantric yogi would then get up from the meditation afterwards and run around in the world, and every sound is mantra, and all the forms you see are all Buddhas. I see you're a Buddha, and I'm a Buddha, and everybody is Buddha. Okay, this guy wants to kill me. He's a Buddha. It's all pure. Yeah, like this. So this is a very, 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 very advanced form of meditation. And they think this is particularly fast, but I believe that it is fast only for the people who are sufficiently talented in order to actually produce meditation in this form. And I don't think that most of those Western enthusiasts of Tibetan Buddhism are anywhere near the level of I mean, for instance, when I started practicing Vipassana method, they also have this idea of a nimitta as a sign, because when the concentration is deep enough, then there's lights appearing, and you can modulate that light just so that your mind knows that it's not outside, because you're modulating it, right? So you're not going crazy. You say, okay, this is a mind within my own light within my own mind, and I can manipulate it and make it smaller to increase the concentration. And then on that ground, maybe you can form a lotus from it, and you can form a Buddha sitting on top of that. So that's very advanced. If you can then carry that through and you practice mantras based on that. I understand that there are some very talented meditators who can make this into a main practice. With this whole scenario, then there's not only a lotus and a Buddha, and you have all the palace around, and everything is made of crystal light, and everything is totally pure, and you're in the middle of the whole mandala, and blah blah. Yeah, maybe some can do that. I doubt that many can. And you see, people fall for this public relation trick that just because this is the most advanced form of practice, they say, or one of the most advanced forms, then it is also the best practice for you. You want to do that because it's so advanced, right? I disagree with that. I think the best practice is the one you can actually put
and see, I'm not, that doesn't sound, what you just described does not sound attractive to me at all. To me, it sounds like there has to be a sense of desire to be there. I just like nothing and losing and space and zero, as much zero and space and zeros. But anyway, I'm not downplaying at all. That's not my point. I want to uplift it. I want to uplift what you just said, but I think the real intent.
What you're into and attracted to is already the ultimate level that is even beyond Tantra. So,
but I do think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
In the Mahamudra tradition and in the Dzogchen tradition, they say, well, these tantric methods are very good and very advanced.
Yes.
And very fast, but real Mahamudra and real Dzogchen is even faster because it requires no time at all. It's just the way it is right now.
And I don't even think about, I'm not into fast at all. I'm into where's your love, where's your heart, where's your radar, where's your compass, what are you attracted to? And space and emptiness is just what I'm attracted to, not because it's quick or fast. But anyway, what I was getting from you talking about
but the thing is, what you are attracted to, they also have this. They have that in the forms of the traditions of Mahamudra and in the form of Dzogchen, but they somehow hesitate to allow you into those levels without you first undergoing this whole tantric rigmarole.
I guarantee you they're smarter than me and they got a reason for it. Oh, that's what I keep wanting to come back to.
Well, one of the reasons probably, if you introduce people into the simple ultimate practices too quickly, they see no reason to finance a monastic industry of the proportions that made Tibet work for centuries. It's a feudal system of financing. You have to finance hundreds of monks for every, and that was their social system, right? Because, this chick had illicit sex with that, I don't know who, she got a illegitimate child. She wants to get rid of it. She puts it at the door of the monastery. Mm-hmm. So in no time, you have 1,000 monks at a monastery, which are not even interested in that religion. But that's the way. That's their social support system, and it was their medicine. It was everything. It was their school system. So Tibet rested on fundamental, and which needed a lot of financing. So a lot of Tibet is explicable in terms of how to finance the religious industry and their social industry. And it's not geared towards you as an individualist wanting to practice the path that is most suitable for you. They had that too.
Thank you.
They had that too. You had this rogue yogi around the corner in that cave, but he might like you, and you might be also such an individual. You go with him. But then you have not much of a social support. Maybe you can go begging, and monasteries would respect them and even tell people, these are particularly respectful, but maybe it's not for you because you first come to us, right? And they're a little bit on the side, and these were exceptional people. Right. It's just the same thing.
But before we straight to four, I just want to say one more thing I've been wanting to say about the visualization and the Tantra thing. The value that I see in that is that what I really think, whether it was intended or not, I assume it was intended. I think that's a preparation for death. I see all of Tibetan Buddhism as a preparation for death.
Oh, yeah.
And I see the visualization as a preparation for, I could see how you preparing that could help. You're exercising the same muscles that you'd prepare for once the bardos and all the confusion happens when you die.
Yeah, I mean, if you can really do that, then it's a very, very advanced and conscious way of maneuvering through your existence. Yeah. If you can do that, but I don't see anyone really getting to that level.
I agree.
I know one of my lamas. He died from diabetes, basically. And he used Powa, which is a consciousness, not the consciousness transference, it's the consciousness ejection, the Powa method.
I've heard of that. That's part of the boon, right?
Gathering all the prana energies in your heart and then sending out through the top of your head, mostly connected to the Pure Land of Amitabha. And so he did that when he saw his time coming. He told his monks he wants to get out of the hospital back to the monastery, and everybody said, no, you're in bad shape. And he said, yeah, well, he knew that his time was coming. So then he set up. They just put up a few cushions at his lower back, and he sat up, and suddenly he felt better, and he meditated, and a couple of hours later he was gone, and he was sitting like that for many hours. And there's a video online with him sitting in Powa, and you can see him like.
I may have seen it. I've seen a couple of these lately. I've seen that. Or
So yeah. So I'm accepting that this is a profound practice and an extremely advanced psycho-spiritual technology, but I doubt that most Westerners under their scriptures will ever get to a level that would make sense for them. And for them, it would probably be better to die like anybody else.
I agree. Yeah, it can be dangerous. Don't fuck around. Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. And you literally say, use that word fuck around, because that's usually what it ends up being. People start thinking that they can use sexual tantric methods. And they start fucking around. Some of the lamas went there, like the Sogyal Rinpoche. I don't have much respect.
I like him, but anyway, only his books.
Yeah. Of course, he had good writers write his books. You wrote it.
But you still like Shogam Trungpa, right? Don't you still like Shogam Trungpa?
Yeah.
Well, me too. My favorite. He's my favorite.
For one thing, I think Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche was way more advanced. Way more advanced than Sogyal Rinpoche. I think Sogyal Rinpoche was a bad copy.
I agree. I don't even know. No. I agree. Go ahead.
And then I still see Trungpa Rinpoche very critically.
You criticize him?
I can't say I criticize him. I'm just saying that I can't say what was really going on there.
I don't care about the moral stuff. I could care. He was an alcoholic. I could care less about that. What I'm curious about.
I don't remember him having raped anybody, for instance.
No. I've never heard anything except drinking. The only bad thing I've heard is drinking. I don't care.
That's just his own body, right?
I could care less. You know me. Yeah. That doesn't interest me. What I'm interested in is he the best example of the rogue yogi or whatever, rogue lama that me and you were talking about? Is he the best example?
I think Trungpa Rinpoche was actually the real deal when it comes to crazy wisdom. But
I love it.
And Sogyal Rinpoche, in my mind, he is a bad copy, a wannabe.
First of all, he's a one and done. He's only written one book. He's contributed nothing. Sugar and
Trungpa. And that wasn't even his own book. He brought out a lot of information, and he had some other writers write it for him.
No wonder, dude. He did not have the magic of Shogam Trungpa. I have every book by Shogam Trungpa. I grew up. But anyway, you answered my question, because if there is ever a rogue, what did the second best one be?
Even though I would say that Trungpa Rinpoche was the real deal, I still see it. Cannot be naive about what went on there. For instance, he chose a regent between his death and whoever is going to pick up his organization afterwards. And that was, I think, Tenzin Oze was his name. He was an American, and he abused some boys and transmitted HIV to them, or one at least.
Yeah, but so, me and you were, but aren't you just talking about?
I mean, if you're on the level of Trungpa Rinpoche, can't you see what's going on with that guy?
I know, but aren't you?
And then that organization later was hijacked by the Nyingmas, right? Because it was actually a Kagyu organization. Trungpa Rinpoche was a Kagyu.
What's the difference between Kagyu and Nyingma?
Nyingma is the old lineage. And the Kagyus is a later oral transmission that came into Tibet later, a couple of centuries.
Practically speaking, what does the difference look like, or value, emphasis? What's the difference?
The difference. What I'm criticizing here is merely that there's something fishy. There was something fishy going on with the organization, because they very much see centers and property as assets which they want to hijack for their own lineage. So they are not all one. It's not like kumbaya, we're all
exactly. That's my point, John. I don't idolize.
As soon as they think they're established in the West, then you have all the old animosities and competition between the lineages going on. And so then basically the Shambhala organization was hijacked by non-Kagyu. They're not under the Karmapa anymore.
I understand. So you're saying Shambhala now you wouldn't trust? Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying I don't trust them. It's just a totally different thing now, and I don't know whether that was the intention of Trungpa Rinpoche.
No, you answered my question. As far as what me and you were interested in, as far as
on the other hand, we now have Trungpa Rinpoche's supposed reincarnation back in Tibet, and he has nothing. He was completely normally. If everything was okay, you'd expect that the Shambhala organization would go to Tibet and offer the organization to Trungpa Rinpoche's next incarnation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, they completely keep him out from everything, and so the whole wealth of the organization is now owned by a completely different sect.
Yeah.
So you got to ask, what's going on there?
I get it. Another follow-up question to that is: after Shogren Trungpa, would the next best rogue Lama be Namkhai Norbu?
Namkhai Norbu, I don't think he's. Well, let's divest the speech of this rogue term. Well,
ones that aren't going to tell you to do all the vows and make the whole thing about you got to do this.
Namkhai Norbu, I think, is the real deal too.
I mean, he's my favorite. Those are my two favorite guys, Shogren Trungpa and Namkhai Norbu. Those are my only influences.
However, even if you have a real deal guy, it doesn't mean that everything is okay around these guys.
I don't care about that. I'm selfish. I only care about what their help could do for me.
I mean,
their pointers.
I'm saying that even if you have a genuine realizer there, you can't expect Jesus to be there.
I
right?
don't. And it doesn't impress me. Jesus doesn't impress me. Jesus does not impress me.
Maybe he should. Maybe he should.
Maybe. But he doesn't. I'm just saying. I mean, I can't help what I'm attracted to.
The typical Jewish thing to do.
I can't. But I can't help what I'm attracted to. You know what I mean?
No. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying that whatever the reality of Jesus was, if he was anything like the way he was, the myth supposes, then that level is not something you can expect among many realizers. You might as well. I think there was in India, if you want to get away from this Christian stuff, what was his name? Maybe I can dig it up later. There was some guy in some Swami Das who
Lami Sir Das.
No, nothing to do with Buddhism. In southern India, in the Madras region. So what was his name? Father Beat Griffiths once referred to him, so I have to dig it up. He also sort of gained what you might call the glorified body. So there was when I saw his biography, I found a lot of parallels to what Jesus is supposed to have undergone with his body. So he said his body is now ubiquitous and everlasting. So that is something that was very reminiscent of Jesus' glorified body. How do you think of body if it's eternal and ubiquitous? And he's talking about what became of this appearance body, right? This body here transformed into something ubiquitous and immortal. So I think that's another level. Maybe the guys with the rainbow body are there. I'm not sure.
Wait, speaking of the rainbow body, I got a question. Have you ever heard of John Reynolds, the guy that does the translating for the Bone books?
I think I've heard the name. Wait a second. Maybe at
the middle, he always usually has the middle name too, John Miriam Reynolds. He always interprets all the Dzogchen and Bone books. But or Keith Dowman, have you heard of him?
He likes his bud.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. What about Robert Allen Wallace?
I'm not saying just because somebody is smoking, it doesn't mean he's not genuine. I don't know these people personally. So
I'm fine with smoking. I'll do that. I don't drink alcohol, but I'll smoke. Absolutely. But I'm just asking, the reason is because I'm very interested, I'm very interested in Dzogchen. I'm very interested in deeper, but you talk to me, I think you're absolutely spot on about the traditions. I don't want to get into the lineage, but I do love those three guys, Keith Dowman, Robert Allen Wallace, and John Reynolds. So are they something, and speaking of Keith Dowman, look at all these books I just bought. I just bought his whole Dzogchen series.
All right.
The whole thing. So is this the closest I could get? If I like Shogun Trungpa and Namki Dorbu, and I'm only interested in the good stuff, is Keith Dowman, Robert Allen Wallace, and John Reynolds the next best thing?
What do you mean by Robert Allen Wallace?
He's another guy that's interpreting. I'll show you his YouTube links, but he's on par with Keith Dowman and John Reynolds. I guess he's an interpreter of, he interprets Dzogchen, he interprets, Lo Chenpa.
Is he this guy in California who?
Probably, yes.
The physicist?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. If you're talking about Alan Wallace,
yes.
I don't know if he has Robert as a first name. Maybe he does.
Yeah, no, Alan Wallace. Alan Wallace.
This is about the intellectually the topmost guy you can find in Tibetan at all.
Yay! So I'm on the right path. I'm John. I'm on the right path with Alan Wallace, Keith Dowman, and John Reynolds. You like all three of those guys?
If we're talking about the same Alan Wallace, that's the guy to go.
Everything you said, the physics, the California, everything.
I would say that is the number one guy, and I wouldn't even say so he's better than all the Tibetans in a way. Maybe he's not such a high realizer, but the Tibetans can't explain things the way he can. And
no, here's my interest. I'll walk you through this.
So if you want something that makes the bridge from wherever you are to Tibetan Buddhism, Alan Wallace is your man. I would just, I can't say anything about Keith Dowman and all these guys, but I would just say, if you like reading, okay, but don't waste your time. Just get into Alan Wallace full gore.
I've been watching his videos, his YouTube videos. It's the same guy, gray hair guy.
Yeah. And he's he has a tone as if he was gay.
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah, so that's the trademark.
Yep. Yep. I love him. Man, it's me and you are simpatico. Me and you, oh my God, everything.
Hyper soft-spoken, this man, right? But very.
He is perfect. You're absolutely. I like actually, Keith Dowman looks like he's talking from a trance all the time. When I was listening to him, I love Keith Dowman a lot. As much as I like them both the same. Alan Wallace and Keith Dowman, their videos. But Keith Dowman, you're right. It sounds like he's talking from a trance, like his eyes are closed.
Yeah. Well, that to me would make me suspicious in itself. Now, if you are in a trance and you want to demonstrate a trance, that's one thing.
I don't think he's doing that. He's not posing. He's old. Yeah. He's like 90 in the video.
I don't mean posing. If you actually want to demonstrate samadhi, it's possible that you can speak from trance. But if you want to make that a kind of persona and want to sort of build this trance super realizer guy, but that's a misunderstanding anyway. I think that you can, the way you talk, right? Whatever your insight is or your realization is, it doesn't require being in trance to tell.
I'm more in common with Alan Wallace. You're right. Would hit my
So the Dalai, I'm not particularly a fan of the Dalai Lama. He got vaxxed too, I think.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Well, I know what not to do now.
I think he's basically compromised by the CIA ever since he left Tibet.
I don't doubt that. I doubt that.
I think he did that in good faith because he thought, well, the Chinese are the bad people, so maybe the Western powers are the good people. So he made a contract with the devil, and so then as we said before, he ran away from the devil's left hand and ran right into the devil's right hand, and now he's there because I think his motivation was to protect his people. In an emergency situation, but whatever that is, now he's compromised and there's no way.
I agree.
But that said, he's not a non-yogi. He is a yogi.
And he's a good person to learn from. I get it. Practice meditation.
Exactly. If you want good traditional explanations, you can listen to the Dalai Lama all day, and I'm sure he knows what he talks about when he says emptiness. And he says that in his morning meditation, he goes through the whole process of death every morning in his meditation. I believe that, but so still, when he comes on stage and talks, he's not in a trance. He's just,
And that's me. He doesn't say that's me making it in my mind. I was only drawing a difference between Alan Wallace and Keith Dowman. And
then I'm just saying why it makes me suspicious if somebody always gives off this trance vibe. it's not even a sign of enlightenment to be in a trance. In fact, trance states like samadhis are only a means to focus the mind in order to recognize the truth, the ultimate truth. And then once the ultimate truth is recognized, the samadhi really is not necessary.
And I get it. Also, though, in his defense, he's 90 years old. I haven't seen a video of when he's 50.
Oh, yeah, then maybe he's just old and
yeah, exactly.
And
I think it could be that. He looked like Santa Claus. He looked
stoned out of his mind. Are you talking about Keith Dauman?
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, I don't mind.
I have to retract that. I'm not claiming that, but it could be. It could be. If somebody makes a habit out of smoking pot and then it becomes 90 that way, well, chances are he's going to be in some sort of trance.
So anyway,
but that's not. I'm just saying that's not a sign of spiritual realization. That's not. You shouldn't.
I get it.
You shouldn't therefore rely on him.
No, I get it. Just like I get it. I understand. Like Nisargadatta smoking cigarettes. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, well, that's he was cool.
Yeah, I like him.
Nisargadatta Maharaj, he was not. He was.
Oh, I like it. Yes, I see. That's what I was saying. I'm more attracted to Nisargadatta than Ramana. I know Ramana is the big one that most people are. I'm more attracted to Nisargadatta than Ramana because when I see Ramana, I see two things. I see enlightenment and I see sainthood. When I see Nisargadatta, I only see enlightenment. And I'm not attracted to sainthood. It just doesn't appeal to me.
It's interesting that you say that, and I think Ramesh Balsekar once made an interesting comment. I haven't seen it for myself yet, but I was told by a friend that Balsekar once commented on that difference between Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi. And he chalked it up to the fact that Ramana's realization came so early in his life. He was
true.
He was such an innocent boy.
Yeah. And
that just because his personality basically terminated at that point, so it just carried forward. He just carried forward this innocent boyish quality. And
wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And so naturally, a saint-like figure then arises from that.
And I know he appealed to more people. I know he
how did Nisargadatta Maharaj get enlightened? He got enlightened once he was a cigarette vendor.
Yeah, an adult. Yeah. But anyway, my only interest in even the Tibetan lineage, this whole conversation in the first place was, like I told you, this all started when I felt like the Bodhisattva vow. When I felt like, because remember, I never took the Bodhisattva vow. I read about it and everything, but I never took the vows or anything having to do with tradition. I never took seriously. I only wanted practice and pointing and experience. But I noticed that I came back, and that is the Bodhisattva vow. The Bodhisattva vow is nature bringing you back out of joy, out of spontaneity, not out of a sense of duty, not out of a sense of anything. It's like going to like a cocoon, like it goes into darkness and then it just wants to share, just for the joy of sharing. And what it felt for me was, I felt like I was withholding. So the thing was, for me to feel joy was to not withhold, just to be completely open. So it's a phase. It's just a phase you go through. But my point is, after that, I realized this is the true Bodhisattva vow. This is nature coming back. Like, this is the way nature works. It goes up and it comes back down and it collects. And it goes back up, it comes back down and collects. So I think the universe is actually a perpetual Bodhisattva vow. I'm not interested in full enlightenment or complete enlightenment. I'm more interested in just nothing, just serving, being, and seeing what happens. I'm not pursuing full enlightenment. And I think the way it works, I think Bodhisattva vow is actually just nature, like a heartbeat. It goes up, it comes back down, scoops back down, it goes up, scoops back down, collects.
What you just said to me in the light of Tibetan Buddhism would mean just the same thing. I mean, if you're interested in the Bodhisattva career in that sense, in the spontaneous sense, that from their point of view would be the fastest way of getting full enlightenment, because you don't care about it. because you're not attached to any notion of full enlightenment for yourself, but you're just doing the right thing at this moment. That's your way of getting to full enlightenment.
Okay, so since me and you are simpatico on everything, every person you like, the direction you like, so because of that, I thought I know owed a debt of gratitude to Tibetan Buddhism. because everything I listen to is Longchenpa. So I saw it out and I thought maybe what I should do is go back on the path as a beginner to Tibetan Buddhism, because I could give better. I could be a better, oh, that's it. I want to be a better host for the host. I want to be a better servant. I just want to be able to give better. And what you said, John, a long time ago, stuck in my head, and I told you it meant something to me, and now you're seeing the fruition of it. When I told you I don't meditate, I'm above that, I don't meditate, I don't read books or anything, you said one day you will for the benefit of others. And I'll never forget that, because I was like, he's probably right. One day I will circle back to meditation, and I will circle back.
Basically, what you can do now is, as I see it, I'm anyway, I'm inconsequential. By the way, I'm shouting over the top of you all the time now. I apologize for that, but you do the same thing, so I have to sort of. Sometimes you want to finish something, I have to shout over you. But so I'm unimportant, and my opinion doesn't really matter. But if you would be interested, since you're talking to me, I guess you're assuming that my opinion could be consequential. I think what's happening with you is that your mind has a realization, and your body is basically, your psychophysical structure was still brought in from the time before that realization. So your ability to express more and better what your mind contains as potential would be to transform your psychophysical vehicle into something that more easily, or can tolerate more a more potent flow and wisdom of energy to transmit to others. So as it is right now, what can you do? Really, you can talk people into the triune nature and whatever, and there's a limited benefit from that. Can you slap somebody in the face and transmit a temporary experience of insight, right? Like that. So those are things that should be interesting for somebody with a realization, is, can I bring more of this power behind me into the front and into the interaction with other people? So for that, then I would say for that, tantric methods are very, very interesting. Because you are then from the view, because you already have the view of emptiness and of non-attachment and of the one taste idea of accepting everything as it is. All that is a perfect ground on which to then transform your body, your energetic body and your physical body, into something that can transmit for others. And when it comes to that, if you have the chance, I mean, you're in the United States, I wouldn't recommend going to California, because, but I don't know where Alan Watts is. No, that's not Alan Watts.
Alan Wallace.
Alan Wallace is right now. He has his institute there, I think.
I know. I Googled him last night. He's just having his last retreat, like today as we speak. He's got nothing more coming, but just by coincidence, like today is he has a retreat, but he has nothing listed pre-coming. But I'm very interested, and that's why that was my question.
For that particular purpose, I would say that maybe you could, something like a prayer. I don't know if you can still pray.
I can do anything. I'm open to anything. Yeah.
Open the question to the cosmos of whether you can be used in that way, and if so, can you be led to a teacher who then, in your case, may not be so important for guiding you to your own liberation, but guiding you in that sense of being able to transform your body into a more effective vehicle. And then maybe you can, maybe he's sharp enough to see that you don't need this whole complication route, but that you can immediately start practicing Yidam practice and the Tsalung practice and all that. It's possible.
So say that again. Yidam. What was Yidam?
Yidam is
or spell it.
Yidam. Well, if you want me to spell it in Tibetan, that would be on the.
No, how I could Google it. You know me.
Yeah, okay. Yidam.
I know that word, but
Yi is basically the mind in its wish making aspect, okay. And Dam is a kind of contract, right? So it's a contract between your mind and enlightenment. So basically, what Yidam refers to is your contract to full enlightenment in the form of a deity. So it's your personal meditation deity, such as, I don't know, some Hindu
Longchenpa? Longchenpa?
Longchenpa, yeah, a spiritual master can also be a yidam if he's.
That's all. That would be sincere. That would come from my heart.
Yeah, yeah.
That would come from my heart.
Yeah, but then you would have to go to the Longchen tradition and see if you can get a Longchen empowerment.
There's such a thing. There's such a thing.
I think so. I'm not in the Longchen tradition, but maybe
that's what Keith Dowman is. Keith Dowman is.
Yeah,
when you Google Longchenpa or Longchenpa.com,
if somebody is a really highly realized Lama, he might see something different for you. He might see that maybe your connection with the Longchen is only the avenue through which you then approach a yidam in the Longchen tradition.
I get it.
I don't know what it would be, maybe Vajrayogini or something, because these yidams can be pretty powerful, and they can be very symbolically. They have a long. Well, but then you're busy, because then you have to study all the aspects of the yidam, and you have to start visualizing and inviting, and then you're doing what in the West would be called theurgy. It's a theurgy. It's invoking deities and transforming your own bioenergetic system into an expression and vehicle of enlightenment. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying
you guys investigate it, though. Investigate it. Yeah.
Investigate it, and maybe talk it over. Maybe talk it over with somebody like Alan Wallace, what he thinks about it before. Before you venture out to get some guru in the tradition, because usually the traditionalists themselves just take it for granted that if you go to them, then you're buying into the tradition hook, line, and sinker.
Let me ask you a question. Is what you know me and my practice, what I'm interested in, without knowing it, is what I was practicing similar to what in Dzogchen they call the Trekchöd practice?
Yeah, I would say that basically what you said, practice is wait a minute.
There's Trekchöd and Togel.
Trekchö, I think it's Trekchö. The other is Tögal, yeah. So what you practice is basically Trekchö or Mahamudra. Is the same thing?
It's you're right. They said they're inseparable. It's the same thing. They said
basically Trekchö and Mahamudra is basically aspects of the same thing. And then beyond Trekchö, you have Tögal, and in Mahamudra tradition, you have these practices that correspond to Tögal, but under a different name. So both Mahamudra and Dzogchen traditions have the same Tögal aspect, but they run in a different style.
So if I was to,
but Tögal is pretty, Tögal is very advanced.
Okay, so Trekchöd, we'll stick with that. Trekchöd.
I guess what you have behind you is a form of rogue Trekchö. Of rogue Trekchö, which is basically separating samsara from nirvana. It's like, back here versus over there.
Oh yes.
And then Tögal is more like the unification of samsara and nirvana. It's more like the ultimate non-dual.
So if I was to learn, I would be interested in the material of both, is what you're saying. They both would appeal to me. Exploring the subject matter from Western teachers, from Alan Wallace, studying Trekchöd and Togel, those would be things that I would resonate with. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Jan.
Gyalpo is the king, so it's not Tögal, it's Tögal, I think.
Tögal. It's got a Y.
I don't remember.
Tögal. Yeah, you're right. Tögal. Yeah, you're right.
Tögal.
Those are the two words that I would be interested in exploring deeper, basically to be what I've been doing, but doing it the way that the inventors intended it. It's like, I feel like I stumbled onto a master's toy and I've been playing with this toy, not knowing I've been playing with, and it was invented by someone and it means something to someone, and they could tell me more about this thing that I've been playing with on my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm not so sure if that would really work, because these tantric methods are usually very involved, and it's taken for granted that you have a very close, not necessarily physically close, but you have a unbreakable allegiance to your guru. Then the guru then becomes like in the Orthodox Church. If you have somebody who's engaged in Hesychasm and the Jesus prayer, then they look for what they call a Starzen, an elder, who for them becomes Jesus personally, right? So if you have a master of the Jesus prayer and you submit to his guidance, then your master becomes Jesus for you. And so whether or not your tantric guru is actually enlightened, when you take these tantric methods from him, you have to consider him as if he was a full Buddha. And that is a lot of his responsibility. If you can actually handle considering him a Buddha, if he fucks up. And
since what I'm devoted to is space, would Longchenpa be a good candidate as a deity?
Yeah, well, he's not a physical guru. I'm talking now the guy who actually connects you to the tradition.
It would have to be a person alive like Alan Wallace.
Yeah, it could be. If he has the transmission, I don't know if he's a...
But it couldn't even be Shogren Trungpa because he's dead, right?
Yeah, you can't get it from him.
Gotcha. All right.
Except if you're somebody on the level of Tilopa, he got his transmissions from the Adi Buddha. It's like he got the real download from enlightenment itself. Maybe you're on that level, but then you probably don't need all these methods either.
And I don't even know if really I'm interested. I don't even know what transmission is, to be honest with you. I just want to.
Well, in this case, it just means the transmission of the empowerment to use those methods. It just means that you have the lung, the wang, and the tri. That means the text, the permission to use the text involved.
That's what that means.
The explanations of the text and the practices that go with it, and the wang, which is the empowerment that make these practices vital and make them a living thing. So the moment you have that, and you actually ideally, and originally it was probably like this: you go to the guru, he gives you an empowerment, and you actually see him as the enlightened deity.
And Alan Wallace is capable of giving empowerments.
There's many lamas who are qualified to give empowerments, but then afterwards you have a problem, because then you can't say he's an asshole.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, like I said, I got no problem with Shogren Trungpa and Sogyal Rinpoche, even though as far as a teacher, I definitely love Shogren Trungpa and Namkha Norbu. Sogyal Rinpoche just happened to be the guy my professor turned me on to as my first book. That's the only reason why I like it.
I know.
Yeah.
I understand.
But Shogren Trungpa, in terms of...
I read that book too, by the way. Back then, I thought it was...
Yeah, but I don't care that he was bad. But in terms of like who turns me on, Shogren Trungpa and Namkha Norbu, you could say that's it. You could put me on an island with those two guys, and that would be enough for me. And by the way, Shogren Trungpa...
Good luck with that search. Good luck with the search for a qualified Lama to teach you. And you have to make it clear to him what you are, right? You should test that guy. Traditionally, it is said the teacher should test the student for 12 years, but also the other way around.
I agree. And my thing is, I'm like selfish. Like I got a magnet. I'm only interested in what me and you've been talking about. So the only reason I like Robert Alan Wallace I feel like he would be able to get past all the rituals and remembrances and just go to the mind. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's worth exploring. I think of everybody, Alan Wallace or Keith Dowman or Joe, those three are...
Yeah, but for going directly to the mind, do you really need another teaching? Isn't that where you are at already?
It's not needing, you know what it is? It's a sort of humbleness and humility. I feel like I've stolen everything just from books, just from a few books, and out of what do you call it? Out of respect. Put it this way, I never even knew what the word Trekchhold was until like this week. And yet I would say that Dzogchen formed my life. And now,
I just got an idea. I have to interrupt you. This whole thing we talked about so far with transforming your psychophysical system into something that is more transparent to whatever power is in the nature of your mind, maybe the first thing you should do is find somebody who can give you a pointing out instruction. If you're into Dzogchen, ask for somebody to give you a Rigpe Tselwang. A Rigpe Tselwang.
Spell that.
Rigpa, you know Rigpa, right?
Oh, Rigpa, yes.
Yeah, so Rigpe is the genitive. It's just meaning that it's the possessive form of Rigpa. Rigpe means of Rigpa. So Rigpe Tselwang means an empowerment which.
Well, say the second word. I know how to spell Rigpa, but I don't know how to.
Just use TSAL or TSH.
Oh, I know that. Yes, I know that. Okay.
Tselwang. Wang is WANG. And the Wang means the empowerment. So somebody who points out the nature of your mind, and then in whatever tradition you prefer, Longchenpa, if you like Longchenpa, it should probably be that type of Nyingma. It's not. I think it's not the. It's a particular branch of Nyingma, I think, if I remember right, which is very close to the Kagyu lineage. In fact, Longchenpa, I think the third Karmapa or the second Karmapa integrated Longchenpa's tradition into the Kagyu school. So now the Kagyus have Longchenpa tradition. Anyway, if I remember that right, I'm not sure. If you prefer this Dzogchen tradition held by the Bön or by the Nyingmas, then you should probably ask for a Rigpa Tselwang. There's also pointing out instructions in Mahamudra, but they are called differently, I think. So basically, it's a pointing out of the nature of your mind immediately, and so that is probably your connection. In a pointing out instruction like that, you should be able, if you're on your level, you should probably immediately recognize what he's trying to transmit. And if you recognize that as genuine, then you might ask him further about, he might ask you what your insight is then. After the Rigpa Tselwang, he might ask you what you want to tell him. And
experience from that moment, or in general?
Yes. He would point something out to you, and maybe you could sit there for a while, and afterwards he might ask you if there's anything you want to say about that. Could be. Doesn't necessarily have to. But
would Alan Wallace be capable of doing this?
I'm not sure. You have to ask him, or if he has anybody he would recommend for that. Okay.
But Rigpa Tselwang.
Exactly, that's a good way to go about it, is filter all my suggestions through Alan Wallace and say what he recommends to you. Yeah. Find out what he recommends to you. And then on the basis of that, see if that is enough for you. If your immediate connection to the ultimate level is completely sufficient for anything you want to do to satisfy this connection, and and say
I just want to submit myself to the people that taught me this and say I'm in my humility. In my humility.
Go immediately for the pointing out instruction.
Yeah.
Just remember the word pointing out instruction. You're looking for somebody who's wanting to give you a pointing out instruction.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much, John.
And then that's completely without all the tantric stuff.
Hey, but it's past 1 o'clock. I didn't realize that. I got to go. But you've been invaluable, John. Thank you so much.
We didn't talk about anything of the thing, of the things that I thought we would talk about.
I know. We got to talk more often, but we have to talk more often.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's talk quick and short ones, and not so rarely.
Well, this one was selfish. This one was all for me. That talk was all for me.
That was clear from the start. I immediately noticed that you had something on your mind, and of course, I'm not going to get through with my stuff.
Yeah.
So because I was interested in talking about everything. All things are equal in space. And we could talk about that next time. I think that's your preference too.
Yes.
But it was not immediately now what you're looking for.
I didn't realize how knowledgeable you were about that, and I had a question. And everything, we are simpatico, just to let you know, everything, like I have a magnet, and I only like something very, like a kind of like a obsessive OCD person, where I'm only interested in this, and you know exactly what that thing is, and you separate that from everything else too. So that's why I find it so helpful, and that's why I interrogated you this time.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm glad. I'm glad if I can help you with whatever knowledge is still left there. Maybe the one or two Tibetan Buddhists will listen to this someday and criticize me for everything, because I've forgotten almost all of it. you think that I'm knowledgeable. Well, I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as I was 20 years ago, because I've kind of shrunk my ambition down to what I can muster.
But see, that's what is left is what is baked in, and that's what's more important. What's left is what stayed, and that's what's baked in. So that's why it means something to me. But I got to go, not by my choice, so I got to say goodbye, and we'll talk soon.
Next time we could talk about all things are equal in space.
All things are equal in space.
For most people, it isn't.
Bye, John.
I mean, it's still equal for all of these people, but they don't see it that way.
And that's what's important. Exactly. It doesn't matter if you don't recognize it. Well, that's next time. All right, John. Okay. Talk soon.
See you. Bye.